Hey sports fans, Keith Talbert here. Today I want to tell you about the Infield Fly Rule. Now the Infield Fly Rule is one of the most controversial rules in baseball. You'll probably find that a lot of people would wish it was never even part of the game. But it's in the rule book. Now, you're probably also wondering, why would this be important to me? And probably also wondering, why is this guy standing in the middle of a raining baseball diamond in January? Well, let's get started with a little of the background on this. Myself, I was a coach for 12 different seasons. Each season, I would find myself in January out on a cold field, and with all the other coaches that were coaching that year, we would go over the rule book. Now, the rule book, some say, came from Abner Doubleday in 1839, as he was the guy that invented baseball. But there's not really any real evidence that supports that. It's more of a myth or a legend. The real origin of the rule book, as we know it for baseball, is 1845, and they called it Knickerbocker rules. And the Knickerbockers and the New Yorks played the first game in baseball history, or the first organized game that anybody can remember, in 1845. Now, they called these guys Knickerbockers. A good bit of trivia in this is because they wore knickers for pants. Now, that's why baseball players today still wear those pants that don't quite go past their knees. They're knickers. The infield fly rule has to be less than 2 outs and a man on first and second, or the bases are loaded. The batter comes up to bat, he pops the ball up. It's not a line drive, it's not a bunt. And the umpire makes a decision that with reasonable effort, any of the infielders can catch the ball. Once that happens, he raises his hand and says, "Infield fly." At this point, the batter is out, and the runners advance at their own risk. Now, there's always confusion as to what their own risk is. If the ball is caught, the runner has to tag before he can advance. If the ball is dropped, then the runner can just keep on running around the bases as if it was a hit. The reason they do this is to keep a cheap play from happening from a infielder just letting the ball drop and then getting a quick double play or triple play if he's got men on base. So to protect the runners, they came up with this rule. This rule has been revised a number of times through the years. Now, 1,000 questions go beyond this. It comes up maybe once in 100 games. But when it does, everybody says, "Oh, it's the infield fly rule. I know what that is." And then they pull out their little rule book and they look. I say, "Wait a minute now. What can we do here?" Well, the first thing you got to wonder is, I don't think it was an infield fly rule. Can we challenge the umpire and say, "Hey, I don't think you got that right"? Well, if you don't like the infield fly rule, and when the umpire calls it, you think you can challenge him, you can't. The umpire's ruling is final. In life, we have umpires. In life, there's a lot of things that we feel aren't fair that we have to deal with. Baseball is a great way to teach kids about that fact in itself, that when the umpire makes a decision, whether you agree with it or not, you have to do what he says. If there's any penalties involved, you pay the penalties. You show respect to the umpire. You show respect to your opponents. You could not have a game without opponents. And win or lose, it is about how we play the game.